Imagine this, you're sitting across from a health consultant, someone who's there not to judge, not to sensationalize, to answer the questions you've always wanted to ask, questions that maybe felt a little too private, questions about sex. For many men and women too, fear, am I normal? Am I losing vitality? Is what I enjoy in the bedroom acceptable? And often these questions remain unspoken, tucked away under layers of embarrassment or cultural silence. But here's the truth: sexuality is part of health. It's not just about function or reproduction, connection, energy, identity, and even mental well-being. Today, I want to walk you through something that is both fascinating and deeply human: 10 sexual activities Americans are actually engaging in. Some of these will sound very familiar. Some may surprise you. And number 8, one tends to spark the most raised eyebrows. But by the end of this conversation, my hope is that you'll see how broad, diverse, most importantly, normal human sexuality really is. Let's start with some context. Historically, sex was wrapped in secrecy. In Victorian times, discussions about pleasure were practically taboo. Even in the 20th century, many medical texts avoided the subject, focusing only on reproduction. Here's what modern surveys and neuroscience have revealed: humans are wired for intimacy in many different forms. Once dismissed as deviant is often completely common. What was once whispered about is now openly acknowledged in research journals and national surveys. The brain is central to this story. When we talk about sex, we're really talking about brain chemistry: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, testosterone. Dopamine drives novelty and reward. Oxytocin cements bonding. Testosterone fuels desire. Each of these plays a role in why certain activities become so appealing and why variety, exploration, and even play are part of a healthy sexual life. So with that framework, let's move through the list, activity by activity, not as a countdown of strangeness, but as a window into human diversity. Vaginal intercourse, still the most common and the one most associated with reproduction. But it's important to note, it's not just biology. During vaginal sex, pressure and movement stimulate highly sensitive areas like the clitoris, the vaginal walls, and the glands. Penis, oxytocin, and vasopressin levels rise, increasing trust and connection between partners. This is why so many couples report that vaginal intercourse feels both physical and deeply emotional. Sex, this is reported by about 85% of Americans at some point in their lives. From a scientific perspective, sex allows very targeted stimulation of sensitive nerve endings. But beyond the physical, it communicates intimacy, generosity, and exploration. Many people find that it reduces anxiety because it removes the pressure of performance associated with intercourse. Mutual masturbation, often overlooked, surprisingly powerful. When partners explore each other's bodies with their hands or even masturbate side by side, it creates a safe, vulnerable, and communicative space. There's little risk of pregnancy, and when protection is used, lower risk of STIs. Studies show that couples who include mutual touching report greater relationship satisfaction because it's about intimacy without pressure. Anal sex, this one is more common than many assume, with around 35–40% of Americans reporting they've tried it. The anal canal has a high concentration of nerve endings, which can make it pleasurable. But it's also an activity with more medical risks, tears, infections, and higher likelihood of STI transmission. That's why lube, protection, and communication are non-negotiable here. Science gives us both sides. Yes, it can be pleasurable, but safety matters enormously. Role-playing and fantasy exploration here. We see the brain at work more than the body. When couples step into a role, whether playful, dramatic, or symbolic, the brain's dopamine pathways light up, creates arousal. It's the same reward circuitry that makes travel or new experiences exciting. The important part: role play thrives on trust. Without trust, fantasy feels awkward. With trust, it feels exhilarating. Use of sex toys, vibrators, rings, wands, these tools are far more mainstream than in past decades. In fact, the majority of women report using vibrators at some point, and many couples use them together. Why? Because toys enhance stimulation, especially for areas like the clitoris, which has over 8,000 nerve endings, far more than the penis. Research shows that couples who use toys often communicate more openly and report higher sexual satisfaction. Bondage or light BDSM, this is where power dynamics meet physiology. Restriction or sensation play can increase adrenaline and dopamine, leading to heightened arousal. It's not about pain, it's about trust, control, and release. Neuroscience tells us that surrendering control in a safe environment can be deeply relieving. And this is essential. Without consent, boundaries, and aftercare, BDSM can be harmful. With them, it can be deeply connecting. Group experiences or swinging, this is the one that shocks people most. While not the majority, Research shows that a significant minority of Americans have explored consensual non-monogamy, whether swinging, threesomes, or polyamorous arrangements. The appeal is novelty and variety, but the challenges are real: emotional boundaries, jealousy, and higher risks for infection. For those who engage in it safely, it's a choice. But it's not a cure for relationship dissatisfaction, and it's not for everyone. Sexting and digital intimacy with smartphones. Digital intimacy has become one of the fastest growing activities. Sexting, sharing images, or engaging in video intimacy taps into the brain's anticipation circuits. Anticipation itself is a powerful arousal mechanism. For couples in long-distance relationships, it can be a lifeline. But digital intimacy carries risks, privacy breaches, wanted sharing, so boundaries and consent extend into the digital space too. Erotic massage and touch, centered intimacy, slow, intentional touch without the immediate goal of orgasm activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for relaxation and emotional safety. Erotic massage isn't just foreplay, it's a way of deepening connection and lowering stress hormones. Many couples who practice this find that it builds closeness in ways performance-driven sex sometimes cannot. So what do we learn from this list? First, diversity is the rule, not the exception. What we often think of as unusual is, in fact, quite common. When we hide our curiosity, cut ourselves off from understanding just how broad human sexuality is. Second, biology explains why these activities appeal to us, shapes which ones we feel free to try. Dopamine drives novelty, oxytocin drives bonding, testosterone drives desire. Whether we act on those drives depends on upbringing, values, and communication with our partners. And third, perspective is key. Sexual activities can enrich intimacy. They're not a cure. All, if trust is broken, if health is neglected, no activity on this list will repair that. But if respect, safety, and honesty are present, these practices can become a language of connection, vitality, and shared joy. When you look at this list, resist the urge to ask, is this normal? A better question is this safe, consensual, and meaningful for me and my partner? Because in the end, the science of sexuality isn't about fitting into a box. It's about understanding the body, respecting the mind, and nurturing connection. So as we've seen, sexual behavior in America is far more varied and far more common than many people imagine. What really matters isn't whether you fit into a statistic, whether your preferences match someone else's. What matters is safety, respect, and honest communication with your partner. Because in the end, healthy sexual life is not about performance or comparison. It's about connection, vitality, and well-being.